She moved out while I was still asleep, drained $148,300 from our joint account, and sent me a text saying she'd found someone better. That was the night everything I'd built, our home, our marriage, our trust, was erased in 2 sentences. But what she didn't know was that I had prepared for this day long before she even started packing. Stay with me until the end to find out how I turned her betrayal into my freedom. Welcome to Vows and Betrayals, where we share the true stories behind the smiles, the vows, and the heartbreaks. If you've ever been blindsided by someone you trusted, drop a single dot in the comments. You're not alone. This space is for you. Thank you for being here, and if you find power in these stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Now, let's dive into the story. Hey, I'm Ray Mercer. I'm 56 years old, and at exactly 10:58 p.m. last Tuesday, my life changed with a single message. It was quiet in the house, the kind of quiet that feels like it is holding its breath. I was in the kitchen, drinking decaf from a chipped mug my dad gave me years ago. I had just closed my laptop when my phone buzzed. It was from Sabrina, my wife of 15 years. The message was short. Ray, I'm not coming back. I've met someone else. I've already moved your things to a storage unit. I transferred $148,300 to my account. Don't try to contact me. I stared at the screen. No emotion, no panic, no shouting or smashing plates. Just silence. Just me and that chipped mug and a number I knew all too well. $148,300. The exact balance in our joint savings account. She took it all. And just like that, Sabrina was gone. But here's what she didn't know. I'm a forensic accountant, and I do not get caught off guard easily. That night, I did not text her back. I did not call. Instead, I finished my coffee and walked to my study. I opened a drawer and pulled out a leather folder labeled Atlas Shield. It had been sitting there for 5 years, waiting. I remembered something my dad once told me. He was repairing the roof one summer, and I was handing him nails. He looked down and said, "Son, never let yourself be caught off guard in your own home." I never forgot that. So no, I was not surprised. Not really. Because when you pay attention long enough, you learn how to read the wind before the storm arrives. I opened the folder. The edges were worn soft from years of waiting. Inside were documents, legal templates, account numbers, contact names, plans, labeled in my own handwriting. Step 1, Step 2, Step 3. I hadn't looked at it in years. I didn't need to. Until now, I logged into a private server using a VPN. I built myself. No one knew about this system except my brother Marcus. He is in digital security, knows how to hide footprints and follow digital shadows. We had created this protocol after my father passed. It was a way to protect the family legacy, the house, the retirement, the memories. But now, it wasn't about protection. It was about preparation. I called Marcus. He picked up on the first ring. "Is it time?" I nodded. "It is, Atlas. Shield is live." He didn't say anything else. He didn't need to. While the server uploaded encrypted backups of everything I owned, I went to check something I hadn't thought about in years. A separate bank system. I used to test fraud patterns. It was my sandbox, and Sabrina didn't know it existed. I typed in the credentials, pulled up account activity, and that's when I saw it. A loan application, 2 years old, approved, signed, under my name, for $105,000. Listed purpose, business development. Borrower, Sabrina Keller. Co-signer, Ray Mercer. I didn't sign that. I looked at the signature. It was close, but I could tell It had been copied from a scanned tax return I filed years ago, slanted a little too far to the left. The R, too smooth. That was not my hand. She had forged my name. Not last week, not last month. 2 years ago, I sat there. Let that settle in. She had planned this long before she ever sent that message. She had laid the bricks for her exit like a builder with a blueprint, and I had missed it. I had been looking at the wrong numbers, watching our savings, checking tax returns. But never once had I searched for debt she might have tied to me. I clicked deeper. The loan had been paid off early, 18 months after it was issued, with funds from our joint account in small pieces. 2,000 here, 3,000 there, so clean, so careful. And I never saw it because I trusted her, because I thought the enemy was outside the house. I leaned back, felt the tightness in my shoulders. It wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about deception, fraud planning. I thought about the yoga studio I had paid for, the luxury SUV, the business retreats that lasted too long. I thought about her saying, "It's nothing you'd enjoy." All health talk and silence. Now I understood. Silence wasn't absence. It was intent. I stared at the loan record again. The timestamp, the digital fingerprint, the details only a forensic analyst would notice. And I noticed them all that night. I barely slept. Not because I was angry. I had moved past anger. What I felt was focus. I woke at 5:30, made coffee, sat in front of the same screen, and opened a different kind of folder. This one wasn't leather. It was digital encrypted and organized by year, by bank. By transaction size, I spent 2 hours building a timeline, dates, amounts, patterns. Then I saw them, withdrawals, not large enough to trigger suspicion, but steady, systematic. $2,000 here, $1,800 there, always on the first Monday of each month over time. They added up $112,000, drained in silence piece by piece, while we watched movies together. While I cooked dinner, while she said, "Thank you for being patient with me." She was emptying our life. While pretending to build one, I leaned back in my chair, looked around the room. Bookshelves filled with case studies and forensic manuals. I'd spent my life tracking other people's deception, but I'd missed the one closest to home. Then I noticed something else. The funds weren't just going into her personal savings. Some were rerouted. I traced the money trail through 2 transfers, and then it showed up in a business account I didn't recognize. Keller, Wellness Media, registered under her name. Business partner, Chad Ellison. It was a shell company. No physical office, no declared revenue. But there it was. My money funding. Someone else's dream. Chad. The name I had seen on her Instagram stories for months. Tagged in yoga retreats, smiling beside her on hiking trails. I always assumed he was just another wellness contact, a background character. But he was the main act all along. I felt a cold weight settle in my chest. I called Marcus again, gave him the name, the company, the timeline. Within an hour, he had pulled a basic dossier. Chad Ellison, fitness consultant, age 37, former personal trainer, filed for bankruptcy in 2018. Started Keller Wellness Media in 2021. No known degrees, no verified certifications, but a strong social presence. Lots of motivational quotes, lots of shirtless photos. I sighed. She fell for smoke in a mirror. But it wasn't about attraction anymore. It was about deception and investment. Sabrina wasn't just leaving. She was reinvesting her future, using me as capital. I remembered a moment from last fall. I was cutting vegetables in the kitchen. She walked in, kissed my cheek, and said, "I'll be gone for a few days." business event in San Diego. When she left, I found her bracelet on the counter. It had my initials on it at the time. I thought she just forgot it. Now I wondered, did she leave it on purpose, like a placeholder? Or was it simply worthless to her? I stood up, walked into the living room, and looked at the wall where our wedding photo used to hang. It wasn't there anymore. Not removed recently. It had been gone for weeks. I just hadn't noticed. I'd been so focused on routine habits that I forgot to look at what was disappearing. I walked back to my study and pulled up security camera footage from our front door. The system I had installed 2 years ago, one that sent backups to the cloud, I watched fast-forwarded through the past 7 days, and then I saw it 3 days ago. A white van, Sabrina directing 2 movers, box after box, labeled Ray, labeled storage. She hadn't just walked out. She orchestrated it, and I had missed every sign because I trusted her smile and her silence. The next morning, Marcus called me. His voice was sharper than usual. "Ray, you need to see this." He had dug deeper, tracked metadata from the loan documents and activity logs, and there it was, an email sent 2 months ago, from an address nearly identical to mine, ray.mercer@consult-fin.net. It was 1 character off from my real email, the kind of detail most people would miss, but not Marcus. He read it to me over the phone. "To whom it may concern, due to an unexpected heart procedure, I, Ray Mercer, grant temporary financial access to my accounts to my wife, Sabrina Keller. She will be managing our affairs until I recover. Please do not attempt to verify via phone. I am currently hospitalized without mobile access." The signature copied from a scanned PDF of an old lease, identical to the one used on the forged loan. I didn't know what hit harder, the fraud or the lie about my health. She had planned for everything, even the paper trail, even the alibi. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This was a structured extraction. Like a quiet heist, I stood in the center of my study, heart steady, breath slow. There was a time I would have yelled, thrown something, but not now. Now I just listened and watched and remembered. She must have studied my habits, knew which documents to copy, knew which banks had slower verifications, knew the holes in the system, and I had trained her every time I explained something. Every time she rolled her eyes and said, "That's your world." Not mine. She was learning, and I was too trusting. Marcus paused. "Do you want me to trace the server?" I said no. "We do this clean. No shortcuts, no gray lines. I wanted this airtight. No panic, no revenge, just truth." I saved the email, backed it up, archived it in a legal folder. I looked at the screen again, at my own name, my own fake voice used against me. And I made a choice. I would not play her game, but I would finish it. By 7:30 that morning, I was dressed, tied my shoes the way I always did before a court appearance, double knot, sharp cuff. No hesitation, I drove to my office downtown. The parking lot was mostly empty, only the early risers. Security nodded. Didn't say anything, but I saw the look. Something had changed. My assistant Valerie looked up as I walked in. "Ray," she said, "I thought you were taking time off. Change of plans." I said, "Please, hold all my calls. And if Sabrina reaches out, refer her to my attorney. Nothing more." Valerie nodded. She knew not to ask. Inside my office, I pulled out a flash drive from the Atlas Shield folder, inserted it into the locked terminal, accessed files encrypted under 3 layers, each named with code words from my father's military days. He was never careless, and neither was I. I spent the next 4 hours sending documents to my legal team, freezing joint accounts, triggering fraud alerts with banks I had personal contacts at. I knew who to call and what to say. This wasn't revenge. This was containment. Each step had a timestamp. Each action logged, I printed everything. 2 sets. One for me, one for legal record. By noon, my phone lit up. Sabrina. Calling again, I let it ring. Then again, and again. Finally, a message. What the hell did you do? My cards aren't working. The money's gone. No reply. She had already crossed the line. Now she was standing in the fire she lit. I checked the security logs. There had been 4 attempts to access the frozen account, all from her IP address. She was panicking. At 2:15, reception buzzed me. Your wife is here. She says it's urgent. Of course she is. I walked out. Straight spine, slow breath. Every inch a man who had been preparing for this exact moment. She stood in the lobby, hair pulled tight, designer leggings, eyes wide but controlled ray. She said, "There's been some huge misunderstanding. Our accounts are frozen. Everything's locked." I didn't respond right away, just looked at her. This wasn't the Sabrina I married. This was the one she became. A strategist, a risk taker, a gambler. "There's no misunderstanding," I said. "You made unauthorized transfers. You forged documents. You violated federal finance laws." Her face fell. "What are you talking about? I'm your wife. You are now. You're the person who tried to strip me of everything, and you almost succeeded. Except you missed one thing. I was ready." She stepped closer, lowered her voice. "You don't want to do this. It'll ruin us both." "No," I said. "You already did. That you can't prove anything," she hissed. I smiled. Let her see the file in my hand. The notarized logs, the email, the signature comparison, the transaction history. Then I whispered, "Try me." 3 days later, we sat across from each other in a quiet mediation room. Me on one side, Sabrina and her new attorney on the other. No smiles, no apologies, just paperwork and silence. Her lawyer spoke first. "We believe this case has been blown out of proportion. My client is willing to discuss a fair division of marital assets without unnecessary hostility." My attorney didn't even blink. "That's good, because there's been a development." She reached into her briefcase, pulled out a folder, stamped with the bank's seal. She slid it across the table. Slowly, Sabrina's lawyer opened it, read a few lines. Then his expression cracked. It was all there. The forged documents, the unauthorized transfers, the digital fingerprint evidence. But that wasn't the twist. The final page was a criminal background check. Chad Ellison, convicted of financial fraud in 2017. 6 months probation. Fined $25,000. And Sabrina knew she had signed off on business contracts. With him anyway. Used marital assets to co-sign his loans. Violated every disclosure clause. This is a serious breach. My attorney said, the bank has initiated asset seizure. They've also referred the matter to the district attorney's office. Sabrina's face went pale. I could see the realization hit her, not just personal loss, but potential charges. I stayed quiet. There was nothing more to say. Her attorney leaned over, whispered. She shook her head, then looked straight at me. Her attorney leaned over, whispered something in her ear. She shook her head, then looked straight at me. But the storm had only begun behind her eyes. First denial. Her chin lifted. "This is ridiculous," she said. "They won't press charges over a mistake like this." She laughed, a high, brittle sound, flipped through the documents again. More frantic this time. "These are business transactions. They don't prove anything." She looked back at her lawyer, searching his face for support, but he didn't look up. Then came the silence and the crack. Her fingers trembled, her mouth opened, but no sound came. "Ray," she finally said, "we don't have to go to war over this. We can talk, fix things. Chad was a mistake, I see that now. Don't do this to me." I didn't move. I didn't even blink. She paused, blinked, then her face hardened. Her voice turned. "Fine," she hissed. "Enjoy your lonely spreadsheets and your sad little cabin. You always needed control more than love anyway." That was the real her. The mask finally dropped. "What do you want?" she asked. I looked at her. The woman I once loved. Now just a cautionary tale. Sign the agreement. I said, "You keep the studio. You keep the car. You walk away free, but you assume full responsibility for the debts you created, and you never contact me again." She hesitated, then nodded. She signed, just like that. The war was over. 2 weeks later, I left the city, packed my truck with clothes, tools, a few books, and a photo of my dad on a fishing trip from 1982. Drove 8 hours north. No radio, just the sound of the road, and silence that no longer felt empty. The cabin wasn't much. A one-bedroom fixer-upper with creaky floors and a leaky roof. But it had bones. Good ones. I spent the first few days replacing hinges, ripping out old cabinets, hauling debris into the woods. At night, I sat on the porch with a glass of bourbon, listened to the lake shifting under moonlight, watched deer drink from the shoreline, felt my body slow down, my breath stretch out. I stopped checking my phone, stopped watching the clock, stopped wondering what Sabrina was doing. She was no longer a ghost in my thoughts, just a chapter I had closed with finality, not bitterness, not vengeance, just clarity. Marcus visited once, brought extra tools. We worked in silence, didn't need to talk much. He said you could have buried her in court, crushed her. I shrugged. What for? She no longer mattered, and I didn't need to win. I just needed peace, and I had it now. Here, where no one asked questions, where the wind sounded like memory, and I could finally hear my own voice again. I learned something out there. In the quiet, with no one to impress and nothing left to prove. You can spend decades building a life only to realize you gave pieces of it away to someone who never planned to stay. But that doesn't make you weak. It means you had the courage to believe, and now you get to choose what stays and what goes. Not all storms come to destroy. Some come to clear the path. So if you're standing in the ashes, just know you're not finished. You're finally free to begin. This was never about revenge. It was about reclaiming truth. And in the end, that's the most powerful thing we can do. If this story spoke to you, leave a comment. Tell me where you're watching from. And if you've ever had to rebuild, from nothing I see you subscribe to Vows and Betrayals. For stories that remind us we're never truly alone. Let's walk into the next chapter together.